Chapter 24: The Human Existence. Human existence is a dynamic interplay between biological instincts and the intricate constructs of society. It is shaped by natural and artificial forces, evolutionary drives that ensure survival, and cultural frameworks that define meaning. While language, instincts, and intelligence root us in life's raw truths, societal constructs like values, religion, and status weave an elaborate web of complexity. This duality forms the essence of what it means to be human, oscillating between the simplicity of biological fitness and the sophistication of social fitness. The journey lies in exploring this balance, uncovering what truly defines life and its perceived lies. Human fitness. Relative to other species, humans possess unique attributes that distinguish their fitness from that of all other species. These traits arise from a combination of cognitive ability, linguistic complexity, and manual dexterity, enabling humans to dominate and adapt to diverse environments. The brain and cognitive ability, mind. The human brain is arguably the most critical asset, providing unmatched problem-solving, reasoning, and planning skills. Our ability to create tools, harness fire, and build shelter has been pivotal for survival. Abstract thought, imagination, and memory development allow humans to learn from past experiences and predict future outcomes. This cognitive flexibility is unmatched in the animal kingdom. Language, tongue. Humans communicate using sophisticated symbolic language, enabling cooperation, education, and cultural transmission across generations. Language unifies the past, present, and future, the near and far, in space and time, all in the moment in both quality and quantity. Language helps share knowledge, coordinate complex tasks, and preserve stories and traditions. Through writing, speech, and gestures, humans have built societies and civilizations, fostering collaboration far beyond the limits of other species. Manual dexterity, hand. There are numerous images of monkeys and dogs' interactions on the internet. You can see a few images of baby monkeys with grown dogs and others of puppies with grown monkeys. Both are alive and in a fair relationship, except they are of different species. I usually use these images for critical thinking and writing exercises. I cannot display them here, no copyrights. Anyway, the question is, who stole the baby? Did the dog steal the baby monkey, or did the monkey steal the puppy? It is all about who is holding whom. In the case of the dog with the baby monkey, the monkey is clinging to the dog. Also, in the case of the puppy with the adult monkey, the monkey is holding the puppy. The central point is the ability to hold and grasp, which is the base ability to manipulate the surroundings. Since the evolution of primates, the ability to manipulate on the go, and to handle minute objects, as well as the ability to navigate dense and complex three-dimensional territories, has dramatically increased fitness relative to other species. Human hands possess a unique opposable thumb, allowing precision gripping, tool usage, and niche manipulation. This capability enables humans to create advanced tools, build infrastructure, and perform delicate tasks like surgery or artistic creation. Manual dexterity also drives innovation and craftsmanship, supporting technological progress. Together, these assets, cognition, language, and dexterity, give humans unparalleled adaptability. Unlike other species bound by niche habitats, humans have settled in virtually every environment on Earth, from deserts to polar regions. While other species may excel in physical strength or speed, humans' combination of mind, communication, and dexterity ensures survival through ingenuity and cooperation, cementing our evolutionary fitness in the natural world. Fitness within the human species. In this context, fitness can be simplified into two main attributes: acceptability and desirability. These attributes encompass the various factors influencing human survival, success, and reproduction. Acceptability refers to an individual's ability to navigate social structures and norms effectively. It involves fitting into society in a way that allows coexistence with others. Skills such as interpersonal communication, cooperation, and conformity to societal expectations are essential for acceptability. Their communities often reject individuals who exhibit repetitive, disruptive behaviors. Additionally, aligning an individual's identities, such as race, religion, caste, or community, with the prevailing societal norms enhances acceptability and access to support systems. The significance of these identities varies across societies. Globally, religion is a key marker of identity, seconded by race. Desirability, conversely, pertains to an individual's attractiveness and appeal as a mate. Evolutionary theories suggest that traits like physical attractiveness, intelligence, and resourcefulness enhance desirability, which are linked to reproductive success. Desirability manifests in several ways, including physical appearance, strength, wealth, and beauty. Clothing and accessories hold a special role in signaling these traits. For instance, one might dress for acceptability at work, but for desirability at social events. Even after the wedding, desirability remains relevant, contributing to an individual's value and social standing. In contemporary society, fitness is no longer defined solely by physical strength or survival skills. Instead, it encompasses a broader range of traits contributing to success, well-being, and the likelihood of passing on genetic material. Among men, desirability often shifts from biological fitness to social fitness as the selector ages. For younger individuals, traits such as physical attractiveness may dominate. However, as people age, material possessions and financial security gain prominence. For example, a 70-year-old billionaire may still be considered highly desirable due to his ability to provide comfort, security, and assurance of a secure future. From a reel on Instagram, in a stand-up comedy show, the presenter narrates a funny incident. "I am starting to realize what I want in a man and what I need in a man are two different things. What I want in a man is like a hot body. Just like muscles everywhere. Just Aquaman. Just wet. I saw one recently, a guy with just a whole bunch of muscles for no reason. Just in his neck. I'm going to shoot my shot. I went up to him, I said, hey, he was like, hey, I said, so what do you do? He was like, I am a personal trainer. And I was like, ooh, broke. I am starting to realize that my lifestyle requires a man with body fat. Every time I see a man with a stomach, I'm like, oh, he got a good job. I will take a man with a stomach any day because I know that he eats, I eat, we eat. Money is a universally accepted medium of exchange that facilitates trade by eliminating the inefficiencies of barter systems. It serves as a measure of value, a store of wealth, and a unit of account, transcending individual needs and fostering societal cooperation. Unlike physical goods, money embodies trust and is inherently symbolic, deriving its value from collective agreement. The invention of money marks a pivotal evolution in human civilization. From primitive barter systems to commodities like salt, silk, gold, and silver, and eventually to modern fiat currencies in digital forms, money has transformed economic interactions. It enabled labor specialization, capital accumulation, and the growth of complex economies by providing a standardized means of transaction. Money provides access to resources that directly influence critical aspects of life, including time, security, fitness, insurance, and certainty. It allows individuals to delegate tasks, freeing time for personal growth, leisure, or family. Financial security reduces stress by ensuring stable living conditions and access to healthcare and education. Money is fitness as it enhances an individual's social desirability and ability to secure resources necessary for survival and reproduction in modern society. Insurance, funded by money, safeguards against unforeseen emergencies, creating a safety net. Lastly, money offers a sense of certainty by enabling planning for the future, whether through investments or savings, empowering individuals to navigate life with confidence. Monetary riches profoundly influence power dynamics, often centralizing authority among the affluent and perpetuating inequalities. Wealth can translate into political, social, and economic power, shaping societal hierarchies and decision-making processes. Human society, human identity. Ancient societies embodied shared identities, race, language, religion, and culture, forming cohesive entities that thrive through unity. One territory, one identity. Evolutionarily, humans developed strong mental modules to uphold group identity, fostering unity within groups and mistrust of outsiders. The mental module must be based on intolerance to differences or deviations in thought, deed, speech, appearance, actions, and belief. Differences cause uncertainty, which causes anxiety, and that causes animosity, which leads to fights. Curbing deviations is essential for the integrity of the identity of the group. Modern societies, however, are mosaics of diversity, encompassing various races, religions, and ideologies. This diversity generates friction when distinct identities compete or conflict. The debate on diversity often focuses on its benefits, such as the variety of perspectives and skills it brings. That is idiotic. It is pretty easy to offend people. One individual's words, gestures, signs, flags, and beliefs can hurt another. In my culture, giving or receiving with the left hand is offensive. Wearing black clothes is too, and so are black walls. I am a part of it too. I must have, I am sure, accrued animosity or hatred just by writing about the conflict between religion and science. I have been in North India, where I was slightly different from the others. I am from the south of India. There were differences in the languages, food habits, and skin color. I have been to Denmark. I was an Indian there. I am from Andhra Pradesh, and I currently work in Tamil Nadu. There are differences. In all these places, I have sensed differences in how I was told apart. I tell some others apart from what I identify with. That is just natural and an inbuilt mental module that operates as it has evolved. It is a natural tendency to feel troubled and aggrieved at differences of opinion. I felt that kind of offense for most of my life. We are all born natural racists. The caste system in India, deeply rooted in ancient social hierarchies, emerged from occupational divisions and later solidified into a rigid, birth-based stratification. Initially linked to Varna and later reinforced by religious and social structures, it became an instrument of systemic discrimination, oppressing those deemed lower in the hierarchy. Despite modern progress, its remnants persist, shaping societal interactions and opportunities. As an Indian, I feel profound shame about this deeply ingrained injustice, which has denied dignity and equality to millions. The caste system stands as a painful reminder of human divisions, contradicting the very ideals of justice and humanity. The caste system makes my native culture one of the most racist cultures. A great deal of self-reflection, exposure, empathy, and training goes into developing flexibility of mind, which can keep one calm during times of difference in opinions. Now consider a society filled with diverse people in diverse ways. It could be absolute chaos, but we have developed rules, rights, democracies, and tolerance. At least, most mental intolerance does not manifest as actionable intolerance. The intolerance is masked in the mind and eroded with repeated exposure and need. In fact, we are in conflict between two mental modules, the module for cooperation and the module for intolerance. Cooperation with us and intolerance of them. In ancient times, us and them resided in different territories and had different identities in different kingdoms. But the us and them are brought into proximity in modern society. Therefore, people have conflicts between the mental modules of cooperation with us and intolerance of them. Active training and flexibility of the mind are required to create balance and stability. Societal stability does not arise merely from diversity. It depends on shared values, unity, and collaboration. Every individual should have aligned their ultimate identity with the society at large. Without that cohesion, diverse groups maintaining separate identities create persistent tensions that undermine harmony. Therefore, the emphasis should shift toward fostering shared purpose and values over promoting diversity for its own sake. Cohesion ensures progress, while unity secures survival. Genetic diversity, however, remains critical for resilience and adaptability, which can be attained by the coexistence of diverse identities in a location. A diverse genetic pool enhances resistance to diseases, environmental stresses, and unforeseen challenges. It reduces inherited disorders, strengthens populations, and ensures healthier generations capable of adapting to changing environments. The problem is that genetic mingling is severely restricted by means of identities. Too many loves lost, too many broken hearts. In my view, I do not see any benefit for the country by having diverse identities, especially religion, unless the most common identity is held high by all citizens, irrespective of their personal identities. But people need religion. There is no way of undoing identity mosaicism in modern societies, and it is not required if we try not to offend others and tolerate others. A future society must teach children the foundations of identity, how to overcome biases, and methods for adopting meaningful debates. The essential prerequisite for a stable society is that humanity, or maybe the nation, is the ultimate common identity. There is no compromise on that. No man who hates the country that provides safety and protection of rights should remain in it. It is the same as saying that one should not stay in a house one hates. It is neither good for the one nor good for the house. The descent of the decent man. I lived with my grandparents during my higher secondary school years, 11th and 12th grade, in a village with poor roads about 4 kilometers from the college. I rode my bicycle daily on a bumpy, muddy road through paddy fields. My cousin and I would travel together, and one day we encountered a farmer coming in the opposite direction, carrying a bag of fertilizers on his bicycle. He was on our side of the road. My cousin, riding ahead, moved aside to let the farmer pass, and I followed, questioning why he gave way even though we were in the correct lane. My cousin explained that with his heavy load, the farmer would struggle to ride on the bumpy side, making it difficult for him to change lanes. He said the desperate should be given more, while the privileged should yield. I did not know if this was a cultural rule, but that moment made me realize that humans have unspoken rules of sympathy for suffering, empathy for the poor, and support for the weak. It is evident, even in seemingly small scenarios. For example, if there were a boxing match between a large and a small fighter, most people would likely root for the underdog. This instinct stems from a deep sense of fairness, as humans are inherently drawn to those facing adversity. We admire resilience, courage, and the potential for the seemingly weaker to overcome the odds. Psychologically, people are often moved by stories of overcoming challenges, which may explain their inclination to support the smaller, less powerful fighter. How did humans become so humane? While people can commit atrocious acts, they can also help strangers in need. This instinct to help others, even those unrelated to us, is part of what makes humanity unique and has contributed to our dominance as a species. In nature, many species, including primates, follow a tournament model of survival, where males compete violently for reproductive rights. In such species, the dominant males establish social hierarchies, often through brutal confrontations. For instance, in most great apes, the male-dominated patriarchal system governs social structures, with violent competition for mates and power. However, the bonobo species stands out as an exception, with females exerting more influence and the use of sex as a tool for communication and culture. In human societies, the patriarchal system persists in many places, with men often dominating over women and weaker males. Early human biology favored aggression and dominance, driven by physical strength and reproductive instincts. Yet as humans evolved, cultural practices began to challenge these instincts, leading to the gradual taming of the human species. The once violent, male-dominated structures were softened through cultural inheritance, which emphasizes empathy, cooperation, and the well-being of others. This shift led to the emergence of human decency, an understanding that transcends basic biological drives. Despite all men's capacity for violence, they inherently fear stronger men. There is always someone stronger or with a better network, whether presently in front of them, nearby, or emerging in the future. Defeat is inevitable, and every confrontation carries risks, whether from injury or the consequences of recovery. Over time, the cost of conflict becomes higher, making the act of yielding a survival strategy. To offer and yield is not a sign of weakness, but a pragmatic choice to preserve strength and ensure long-term survival. Consider a simple analogy: 2 men fighting over a ripe mango. The winner, having fought for the fruit, risks injury and possibly damaging the mango in the process. The alternative is to share the mango, which avoids conflict and provides each man with half. Sharing offers social benefits, trust, cooperation, and the foundation for future collaborations. To offer and yield becomes a survival skill, emphasizing collective harmony and resilience over individual gain. In game theory, this strategy is represented by the hawk-dove model of Richard Dawkins, where individuals can choose between aggressive competition, hawk, or cooperative sharing, dove. The dove strategy avoids the costly consequences of conflict and ensures long-term stability. When both parties adopt the dove approach, resources are shared, reducing risk and fostering trust. This strategy, when adopted over repeated interactions, is evolutionarily stable, as the costs of fighting, injury, vulnerability, and potential loss outweigh the rewards of victory. Being nice is a survival skill. Cultural inheritance plays a crucial role in guiding boys toward becoming decent men. From childhood, boys are shaped by family, societal norms, and cultural traditions, fostering behaviors that align with social harmony and cooperation. The process begins within the family, where both parents play vital roles in guiding the child through a household hierarchy. Given the extended parental care in humans, boys are expected to follow this hierarchy, with the first steps in learning decency starting at home. Over time, the boy is introduced to society through his parents, and the manners learned in this process shape his personality and behavior. Deviations from decency often occur when boys interact with their peers, especially during adolescence, as biological impulses emerge. Factors like the freedom allowed, the direction of the peer group, and an individual's position within the group play significant roles in determining his decency. Reward and punishment further reinforce this process. Positive reinforcement, such as praise and rewards, encourages cooperative behavior, while punishment discourages aggression or defiance. These mechanisms help boys internalize societal expectations, linking desirable behaviors to rewards and undesirable ones to consequences. Society complements this by extending lessons through education, peer interactions, and cultural narratives. Schools teach discipline and respect for rules, while communal activities emphasize teamwork and conflict resolution. Cultural traditions promote ideals of nonviolence, accountability, and shared responsibility. A significant force reshaping this system was the shift from physical to cognitive superiority. With the advent of language and tools, cognitive abilities became valued over physical strength. Humans began to excel in intellectual pursuits, which led to changes in social structure and the dynamics between men and women. The focus moved from dominance to cooperation as humans learned to resolve conflicts without violence. The rise of culture, law, and governance paved the way for decency. Values such as caring for the needy, siding with the weaker, concealing sexual desires, and avoiding unnecessary friction. Men, once defined by their ability to dominate, were now defined by their ability to care, support, and display moral integrity. The man has learned to yield in the disguise of decency and nicety for his own safety from other men. The might of an individual is not sufficient fitness. The strongest group among the groups in the land fared well. The strongest man of that group is the king. Control on a large scale was achieved through stratification. From those stratifications, women gained freedom and prominence. In the fights between men, women have suffered in silence for too long. Nature granted neither rights nor free will when it comes to mating. But through the cooperation of men, a new woman has risen, with rights, power, and free will, or at least the hope of it. Women have had to navigate their way out of the physical dominance, traditions, and religious constructs that once constrained them. While restrictions on women remain evident in certain cultures, the situation today is significantly improved compared to centuries ago, with greater freedom and autonomy now being recognized and upheld in many societies. Cultural rituals and festivals also serve as bonding mechanisms, creating shared experiences and reinforcing collective identity. These gatherings often act as platforms for social networking and mate selection within the boundaries of accepted norms. Additionally, religion plays a regulatory role by imposing penalties for transgressions like adultery, ensuring adherence to group-prescribed values. The concept of marriage allowed men to share mating rights, and the ability to choose a partner, particularly for women, became a key social asset. A man with a better woman became the best among men. However, the downsides of decency are not without merit. In conservative societies, despite surges in testosterone, men wait until adulthood or marriage to engage in sexual relations, managing internal conflict to maintain decency and avoid being ostracized. This cultural inheritance often overrides biological impulses, creating what is known as the gentleman syndrome. This syndrome reflects societal conditioning, where excessive gentleness, driven by the desire to be liked, suppresses assertiveness, making men oblivious to romantic cues. The overemphasis on politeness can lead to misinterpretation of female interest, with some men unable to recognize clear advances. Paradoxically, Many women may be drawn to troubled men, perhaps due to the traits associated with struggle, which may be perceived as a sign of fitness in a society weary of complacency. Marriage, the greatest cultural invention. The greatest cultural invention for the success of human society is marriage, mating rights reserved to each person by acknowledgement or approval of the society. Every bird gets a worm. None should question nor disturb those mating rights. That one cultural law has diminished the probability of violence to near impossibility. That is why there is peace in society. In most other species, the biggest cause of infighting is for mating rights. Squabbles over food, spots, and space occur in other species, but those are rarely fights. Only for mating rights could the fights bellow into wars, sometimes with fatal consequences. Marriage structures have varied significantly across cultures, influenced by social, economic, and religious factors. The most common form globally is monogamy, where one husband marries one wife. This model is prevalent in Western cultures and is supported by laws and religious norms. For example, in most of Europe and North America, monogamy is the legal standard and is rooted in Judeo-Christian traditions that emphasize the union between one man and one woman. Polygamy, the practice of one man having multiple wives, is another widespread form of marriage, especially in parts of Africa, the Middle East, and some communities in Asia. In societies such as among the Maasai in Kenya or in traditional Islamic cultures, polygamy has historically been practiced as a way to increase a family's social standing and produce more heirs. In contrast, polyandry, where one woman marries multiple men, is much rarer but can be found in certain regions, particularly in parts of Tibet, Nepal, and India. In these societies, polyandry often serves economic and environmental purposes, such as limiting population growth or ensuring the equitable distribution of family land among sons. Seeking direct consent for sex is a crime and indecent behavior. The man, while raging with testosterone, can neither freely seek consent for sex nor forcefully have sex. It is rude and a crime. Even to signal sexual interest is rude or indecent in conservative societies. Mating should happen only with the approval of society or the previous generations. I do not think humans are naturally monogamous or monoandrous. Only in the birds with flight would one see a pair bonding type, one spouse for a lifetime. In most other species, mating is by competition and availability. I read a long time ago something like, a man desires all of the available women, while the woman desires the best of the available men. The urge and drive to fornicate and procreate is natural, but is to be highly regulated from the public view and physical manifestation. It is all in the mind of each individual, for only the individual knows the individual's deepest secrets, secrets that are almost the same for all, yet never spoken, never admitted, and never conceded. I will leave it at that, for each person has their own battles between the angels in their heart and the demons in their mind. Culture and religion. Culture refers to the collective customs, practices, values, norms, and artifacts that characterize a group or society. It encompasses the shared ways of living and thinking transmitted across generations through language, rituals, traditions, and social institutions. Culture is the lubricant that reduces the friction of discord in appearance, speech, actions, and traditions. Culture allows the identification of individuals and predicts the interactions, thereby reducing friction. Religion is a system of beliefs, rituals, and moral guidelines centered around worshiping a higher power, deity, or sacred principles. It is about God and spirituality. It often includes rituals, scriptures, and institutions to provide spiritual meaning and explain existential questions about life, death, and morality. Religion is the glue that binds different minds together in speech, action, and thought. Only religion can get to the mind. Culture and religion have evolved as powerful mechanisms for regulating human behavior, particularly in maintaining group cohesion and determining mating rights. By prescribing norms, values, and rituals, these systems foster harmony within communities while ensuring the orderly continuation of social structures. In the context of mating rights, religion and culture have historically established frameworks to regulate relationships, often promoting monogamy or polygamy based on societal norms and available resources. These systems aim to prevent chaos in mating by enforcing rules around chastity, fidelity, and prohibitions against incest. Many religions sanctify reproduction, framing it as a divine act, while culturally significant practices such as dowries, courtships, and marriage ceremonies formalize mating rights and integrate individuals into the social fabric. However, these frameworks have disproportionately impacted women, as they have often been positioned as the prize in the struggle for mating rights. This pattern reflects a broader trend seen across many mammalian species living in interdependent groups where females frequently become the focal point of competition. Consequently, many rules and restrictions have historically been imposed on women. Among primates, such restrictions appear to be a natural norm. During my year-long observations of macaques, I witnessed young females living under constant fear, submitting to the alpha male as he passed by. One striking example was a young mother who would not accept food directly offered by my neighbor. She had to wait for the alpha male to approach, take the food himself, eat, mount the female, and then pass the food to her. In my observations, there is nothing called rape in this group. There is just submission. Further details of these observations will be presented in a separate work. Religion has kept societies intact. Religion balances the human mind by infusing fear or belief. I guess religion is required for those who need an overseeing and overarching entity to keep them sincere, hopeful, tolerant of loss, pious, moral, confident, and sane. Due to the amount of friction between religions and the immense misinformation, I wouldn't want religion to be outside the houses and the hearts. If it is about God, peace, connection, and love, let religion not spill out of the heart. Irish comedian Dave Allen says the Pope, discussing the existence of God with an out-and-out atheist, starts off very correctly in discussion. But as the hours go by, it gets more and more heated, and eventually the Pope, tense and exasperated, says, "You are like a man who is totally blindfolded in a completely dark room looking for a black cat that is not there." The atheist responds, "With respect, Your Holiness, I think there is a great similarity between us both." The Pope asks, "What do you mean?" The atheist replies, "Well, as far as I am concerned, you are like a man who is blindfolded in a totally dark room looking for a black cat that is not there. The only difference is that you have found it." The origins of religions. The human mind cannot handle uncertainty because it is wired to anticipate suffering, pain, or mishap. Our actions in the present carry consequences that may unfold in the future, however distant. These consequences will be evaluated and judged, and may impact life in ways we cannot fully predict. The uncertainty surrounding them can be overwhelming, shaking the confidence needed to act decisively. The anxiety of unpredictability, combined with the pressure of judgment, often leads to hesitation or failure. This burden becomes exponentially greater when the anticipated outcomes are either highly improbable or perceived as urgent and essential. Modern humans face unparalleled psychological pressure. No other animal experiences this to the same extent. The execution of actions becomes a struggle, demanding immense confidence and conviction. To sustain continuous effort, we require mental strength, whether it comes from within or an external source. This is when God appears in the mind. For many, including myself in the past, a sense of conviction and perceived support was necessary to keep performing action after action. People need that reinforcement, especially when they have been raised with it. Removing such a deeply ingrained support system is not easy. The problem is that some, if not all, humans tend to build up anxiety about the future, especially when there is surplus time to do nothing. The obsession to know and be in control of the future is a consequence of our ability to think. We think and then think more. Me too. I am a pathological thinker. Anything that happens out of the norm triggers the sense of impending mishap. This sense is exaggerated when two anxious minds communicate. A thunder, a ruffle, a roar, a failed hunt, injury, or accidental death could all cause grief, anxiety, and restlessness. Some consoling or calming is required to contain the restlessness. Then appears the God. Ancient worship often emerged from fear and anxiety, with natural phenomena like thunder, lightning, and volcanoes symbolizing divine wrath and destruction. Death and disease were associated with gods who controlled the afterlife or plagues, while dangerous animals like snakes and wolves were revered for their symbolic and lethal qualities. This fear-driven worship sought protection and appeasement. In contrast, desire-motivated reverence for life-giving elements such as the sun and rain, deities of love and fertility, and gods of healing like Asclepius. These figures were sought to fulfill humanity's needs for prosperity, health, and reproduction, reflecting the aspiration to attain blessings. Intrigue fostered worship of celestial bodies like stars and the moon, revered for their mysticism and connection to divine forces. Concepts such as cosmic balance, sacred numbers, and mythical creatures captivated human imagination, adding layers of mystery and symbolism to religious practices. Prosperity-oriented worship focused on earth as a nurturing mother, water as a source of life and trade, and deities associated with harvests and wealth. Additionally, symbols of power such as mountains, eagles, and war gods were venerated to legitimize authority and strength. Community and protection centered on fire, rituals, temples, music, arts, and festivals, fostering unity and safety within societies through divine presence and collective belief. Humans have a sense of the future through the prowess of imagination and existential fitness that gave free time and language to describe the present, past, and future. Then it is inevitable for several questions to pop up like, how can we get food tomorrow? What happens after death? I heard the thunder, it is scary. We hide, but nothing much harm happens to us. Why are we still hiding? Do you think the lions will hunt us tomorrow too? You set to go towards the sun, but there isn't food here. Instead, we lost our friend to the snake bite. When the future meets language, there is a barrage of questions that someone should answer. Typically, the head of the group is at the receiving end. Ancient human groups required cohesion, which necessitated the presence of a leader. The leader needed the capacity to hold the group together, not only through physical means, as animals often do, but also through cognitive means. These cognitive means included the ability to predict future events, determine a course of action, provide reasoning for decisions, and navigate uncertainty and the unknown. The group looked up to the leader, and it was essential for the leader to offer reasoned and purposeful actions. The environment was highly unpredictable, with numerous unknowns. In such situations, what actions should the leader take to maintain group cohesion and survival? The ancient leader might have provided reasons for his actions, which could have been correct, incorrect, or untestable. If his predictions turned out to be correct, his stature as a leader would be elevated, earning him greater trust and a larger following. If his predictions were wrong, two possibilities could arise. He might lose credibility by being exposed, or he could fabricate new evasive explanations to maintain his influence. One form of reasoning that consistently allowed a leader to evade scrutiny was the invocation of the untestable. He might attribute his decisions to the influence of an unseen entity, such as deceased ancestors, a former king, or a deity. These explanations, being neither provable nor disprovable, provided a convenient and enduring justification for his actions. Invoking the untestable as a basis for predictions or reasoning ensured acceptance. If the prediction was correct, faith in the untestable entity grew stronger. If the prediction was wrong, secondary evasive reasoning would come to the rescue. In this way, every hit reinforced belief in the untestable, while every miss was either ignored or rationalized away. In a life marked by suffering, misery, and tragedy, any moment of goodness stands out and is cherished, whereas sorrow remains the expected backdrop of existence. Hits are counted, while misses matter far less. The untestability of gods makes them immortal. Nevertheless, who is this untestable entity? It is someone who loves, cares for, and guides us, yet remains unseen. A relatable form is required to make sense of such an entity. If it provides for us, the spirits of dead elders must watch over us. If it nurtures us, it could be the land and trees that sustain life. Alternatively, it may resemble humans, yet possess control over day and night, life and death. Thus emerged the conceptualization of divine attributes, all-powerful and immortal. Mortality disqualified ancestors and deceased kings from divinity, and even celestial bodies like the sun and moon were deemed inadequate, as eclipses revealed their limitations. The only entity that fit the criteria was an omnipotent, immortal, and invisible God, transcending all tangible imperfections. Ancient polytheistic religions, practiced across various cultures, worshipped multiple gods, each governing different aspects of life, nature, and prosperity. These deities often personified natural forces such as the sun, moon, and earth, or embodied virtues like wisdom, war, and fertility. Civilizations such as the Hindus, Mayans, Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, and Mesopotamians developed elaborate mythologies and rituals to honor these gods, believing they influence both cosmic and earthly events. Polytheism was deeply embedded in their daily lives, shaping cultural practices, governance, and their understanding of existence. These religions provided a framework for interpreting the complexities of the natural world and human experience. I was born into Hinduism and am well acquainted with its many gods, but not much of the scriptures. I had a few favorites, but the sun god remains the most resonant for me. The sun is the only deity I can see, and since childhood, I have instinctively prayed at every sight of it, many times a day. Even after leaving religion, I have been unable to shake off this mental habit. I do not ask for anything. It is simply ingrained in me. When I was in Denmark, I tried to learn about the Danish religions. My Danish friends said, "We are Protestants." I asked about their ancient religion and their roots. Then I heard about the Norse gods and mythology. My lab friends gave me a silver Thor pendant as a send-off gift. I treasure it to this day. Both Norse and Hindu pantheons feature gods with distinct domains and characteristics. For instance, Odin, like Hindu Brahma, is associated with wisdom and creation, while Thor and Indra both represent thunder and storms. Somehow, most of the ancient polytheistic religions died out by the advent of Abrahamic religions. There must have been a debate about how many gods there could be. Why is there a need for so many gods? Who is the first of all the gods? Who created all the other gods? Who is the God of all the gods? If there is a boss god, then all other gods are not gods because God can't be a subordinate to anyone else. There is only one possible outcome of such a discussion, that there is only one God, the true God, and all those religions that preach polytheism are false religions with false gods. There is no God but God. That is the origin of monotheism. Judaism emerged in a location where polytheism already existed and needed to outdo and acquire more followers. This introduced the vocabulary of believers and disbelievers. I am not sure in how many religious scriptures disbelievers are mentioned. Religious traditions with a more tolerant stance toward disbelief, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, typically did not enforce rigid distinctions between believers and disbelievers. With its vast array of philosophical schools, Hinduism acknowledged atheistic and skeptical views, like the Charvaka tradition, which rejected the Vedic concept of divinity. Hinduism often focused on living righteously rather than strictly adhering to a specific belief in a deity. Similarly, while promoting the Dhamma, teachings of the Buddha, Buddhism did not emphasize belief in a god and was more concerned with ethical conduct and enlightenment. Disbelief in Buddhist teachings was seen as ignorance or misunderstanding, not necessarily a moral or divine failing. Jainism, with its focus on karma and nonviolence, also did not force adherence to a particular belief system, but emphasized individual spiritual progress. Sikhism, while emphasizing devotion to Ek Onkar, one God, did not condemn disbelievers, but instead critiqued ignorance or attachment to material illusion. Monotheism introduced a rigid division between believers and disbelievers, often framing the latter as opponents of divine truth. Disbelief was not seen as an alternate perspective, but as a rejection of ultimate authority, leading to social, legal, and existential consequences. Apostasy, abandoning the faith after once adhering to it, was equated with betrayal and met with severe penalties. The idea that disbelievers defied divine will justified actions ranging from societal exclusion to forced conversion, and in extreme cases, execution. What began as spiritual guidance evolved into a political force, with monotheistic traditions actively suppressing disbelievers. Religion was institutionalized, politicized, and weaponized. Legal structures reinforced the supremacy of believers by imposing economic disadvantages, additional taxation, and restricted civil rights on those outside the faith, making adherence spiritually, materially, economically, and politically advantageous. Military conquest often accompanied religious expansion, with conversion consolidating power. Apostasy was particularly condemned as it threatened the unity and dominance of the faith. Enforced belief through social pressure, legal consequences, and active expansion ensured monotheism's centrality to religious and political authority. In most of the ancient world, a single state with one religion often destroyed others and their beliefs. In the case of monotheism, it had to grow within an already established religious framework. There was also an advocacy to spread the religion and distinguish believers from disbelievers. The Abrahamic religions originated in the Middle East, specifically in the region encompassing the Levant and Mesopotamia. Judaism emerged in ancient Canaan, modern-day Israel and Palestine. Christianity began in the same area centered around Jerusalem, and Islam arose in the Arabian Peninsula, particularly in Mecca and Medina, modern-day Saudi Arabia. There has been constant friction between these religions due to their proximity, each striving to acquire more followers and territory. This mirrors how biological species interact, competing, conflicting, and cooperating based on existence, dominance, and growth needs. Which religion will outcompete and outlast all others is the one that imposes strict adherence, stability, internal policing, reduction of change, agency to spread the word, fecundity, and discrimination based on us and them. The brunt of the friction between monotheistic religions, which extended beyond their territories and times, fell upon polytheistic religions and traditions, resulting in the annihilation of lives, cultures, and civilizations on whose graves we now exist. Religions, like all other identities, follow fundamental laws of existence: the law of stability, resistance to change, reduction of change, and reversal of change. These principles manifest in strict adherence, peer policing, intolerance to deviation or attack, active conversion, whether through enticement, coercion, or force, and the prevention of apostasy. In modern society, these dynamics often lead to conflict, placing individuals in the crossfire of religious tensions. A crucial factor in the stability of religion is its scriptures. Sacred texts have preserved beliefs and rituals, ensuring continuity across generations. In contrast, religions without scriptures are more susceptible to distortion and transformation over time. Culture provides a clear parallel. Lacking a fixed textual foundation, it evolves far more rapidly than religion. Books have anchored religious traditions, preventing their rapid evolution and reinforcing their endurance. Many ancient religions perished precisely due to friction between competing faiths. Religion, culture, and traditions give order and certainty through routines and repetitive cycles. There is peace in individuals and within communities. The most alarming aspect of religious evolution is its institutionalization and weaponization. What should have remained a source of personal solace, moral guidance, love, and care has often been co-opted as a tool of division and power. In the end, the gods die when peace does. The brain's response to uncertainty. The human brain is wired to seek certainty. Uncertainty triggers anxiety, activating the brain's limbic system, especially the amygdala, which processes fear and threat perception. In response, the brain constructs narratives, rituals, and beliefs that provide a sense of control, even if these solutions are irrational or extreme. This deep psychological need for certainty has, throughout history, led societies to embrace unfounded and sometimes perverse practices, including human sacrifice, as a means of mitigating existential fears. When faced with events beyond human control, natural disasters, plagues, famines, or military threats, societies have historically responded with drastic rituals that reinforce the illusion of predictability. Human sacrifice, in particular, emerged as an ultimate transaction, a life offered to an external power in exchange for stability, protection, or favor. This belief system follows a psychological pattern. When no tangible solutions exist, the mind clings to symbolic acts, however violent or irrational, to fabricate certainty. The historical examples of human sacrifice illustrate this mechanism. The Aztecs believed their offerings maintained cosmic order, the Incas sought divine favor through child sacrifice, and the Carthaginians sacrificed infants to ensure protection from disaster. In each case, uncertainty, whether about the afterlife, the will of the gods, or natural calamities, was mitigated through extreme acts of ritualized violence. The Shang dynasty justified mass sacrifices to uphold dynastic rule, while the Celts performed human offerings to secure military victories. These acts, though horrifying in hindsight, were psychologically consistent with the brain's demand for certainty in the face of chaos. Cognitive biases play a crucial role in this phenomenon. Confirmation bias ensures that societies interpret ambiguous events as validation of sacrificial rituals. If a kingdom conducted sacrifices and subsequently experienced a good harvest, the practice was reinforced. If disaster followed, it was rationalized as an insufficient offering, necessitating even more extreme acts. This cyclical reasoning, combined with the sunk cost fallacy, prevented societies from abandoning their beliefs, leading to institutionalized sacrifice. This psychological rigidity, however, is not confined to history. Even in modern societies, people construct rigid belief systems that resist contradictory evidence. From ideological extremism to conspiracy theories, the brain's aversion to uncertainty often leads to cognitive distortions that justify irrational behavior. The challenge, then, is training the mind for flexibility, a crucial skill that civilizations have historically lacked. Until individuals and societies learn to embrace uncertainty rather than react with rigid, unfounded solutions, the patterns of the past risk repeating in different forms. I have observed how deviations from religious norms can sometimes spiral out of control, leading to harmful perversions. In some instances, these deviations pose risks to the individual and the community. For instance, I have noticed people, including myself, becoming obsessively fixated on rituals, pushing them to extreme and often detrimental practices. When practiced individually, I am convinced that religion differs significantly from religion practiced collectively within a community. Many instances of perversion seem to emerge from those who deviate from the communal practice of religion. The human mind is a fertile ground for generating diverse ideas, notions, and even illusions, some of which can be harmful. In community religion, harmful ideas are often mitigated or corrected through dialogue and guidance from others within the group. The challenge arises with individuals who isolate themselves from the communal aspects of religion, as they lose this collective filtering mechanism. Also, when there is a single authority figure and all others are absolute followers, a cult is formed, swaying the minds and actions of the group according to the whims of that authority. With no friction, no dialogue, and blind submission, a group can become chaotic and frenzied. Such cults can kill others and even kill themselves. The tragic events of the Burari deaths, the Jonestown massacre, and the Heaven's Gate suicides underscore the dangers of deviating from larger religious or cultural frameworks. Each of these cases highlights how isolation from mainstream beliefs, ritualistic practices, and unchecked authority can lead to catastrophic outcomes. The Burari deaths in 2018 involved 11 family members in Delhi who, driven by collective delusions and ritualistic behavior, performed rites they believed would lead to salvation. Isolated from external checks, their shared psychosis spiraled into tragedy. Similarly, in Jonestown, 1978, over 900 followers of Jim Jones consumed poison in a collective suicide, driven by their leaders' distorted ideologies and cut off from broader societal accountability. The Heaven's Gate Group, 1997, mirrored this pattern, with 39 members believing their suicides would lead to spiritual ascension aboard a spacecraft trailing the Hale-Bopp comet. Objectively, these incidents share several commonalities. All three involved isolation from mainstream religious practices, fostering environments where unconventional ideologies flourished without external scrutiny. Centralized leadership or influence played a significant role, with charismatic figures or dominant voices guiding their group's beliefs and actions. A belief in transcendence or salvation unified the groups, often justifying extreme behaviors as a means to achieve a higher purpose. Additionally, ritualistic behavior was a hallmark of these cases, whether through coordinated suicides, ceremonial rites, or meticulous preparations. Psychological vulnerabilities such as groupthink, dependency, and collective delusions further amplified the risks. These cases reveal how isolation and the absence of communal accountability can lead to perversions or delusions with devastating consequences. When religious or cultural practices become detached from community discourse and critical evaluation, they risk escalating into harmful extremes. These incidents emphasize the importance of dialogue, moderation, and the checks provided by broader societal or communal frameworks. Imagine multiple cults emerging, driven by blind obedience, rising to kill innocent people. Like the worker bees in the trance of pheromones, religion occupies the mind, and free will, on the truth and reality, it tramples. That is a sweet relief at the cost of truth. Should truth matter if life is a struggle? Me and my religion. I'm a shy person interested in sports, science, and logic. I grew up in a nonprofit, social service, and devotional residential school for 10 years, ages 5 to 15 of my childhood. The school, Sri Satya Sai Gurukulam, is located in Rajahmundry, Andhra Pradesh, India. Education was free. We only had to pay a nominal amount for boarding and food. We stayed with our families 3 times a year during vacations, totaling about 60 days annually. Thus, most of my childhood was spent at school, which became my entire world. It was a devotional institution grounded in human and secular values, where we sang songs about all religions: Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism. I grew up as a secularist, praying to any god without hesitation and believing that all religions are true and equal. All religions are different paths to the same God. I was not highly religious, just occasionally praying and visiting temples based on my needs. I did enjoy the bhajans, singing devotional songs along with the community. I was also influenced by the rites of the devotee when I learned of the great Telugu poet Srinatha. In a satirical poem, Lord Shiva is almost ridiculed. Lord Shiva has 2 wives, Goddess Parvati and Ganga, the goddess of water. After witnessing severe drought in his country, poet Srinatha writes, Telugu English translation, "It suits that man of riches to marry 16,000 women with due pride. You yourself live by alms. Do you need 2 wives? Lord Shiva, leave Ganga for us. Parvati is sufficient for you. In the religion of Hinduism I was born into, I have a lot more liberty. In other religions, a poem like this would have been considered blasphemy, which could result in torture or death. In Hinduism, the devotee has rights in thoughts, appearance, being, and living to varying degrees, according to Indian philosophies. The individual even has the rights and choices of the numerous gods. One can even choose not to believe or revere gods. Somehow, ritualism started during my late teens while I was living with my grandparents. The rituals and religiousness accumulated with my desires and setbacks in my personal and professional life. By 2014, I was deeply devotional, highly superstitious, and excessively ritualistic to the point of paranoia. I developed a personal ritualistic religion. While I possessed a rational side, my personal sphere was deeply immersed in mysticism, supernatural beliefs, and compulsive ritualism. This behavior became increasingly addictive and compulsive. I began my day by waking up and looking into my right palm, a ritual I repeated several times throughout the day. I would gaze at the sun multiple times daily and at the moon whenever visible. I habitually made intense eye contact with numerous deity images in my house. After bathing, I prayed for 5 minutes at the worship place in my home, which contained about 10 deity images or idols. I developed a compulsive obsession with making intense eye contact with each deity in the order they were arranged. If I failed to make satisfactory eye contact with even one, I had to restart from the first image. Over time, I added the requirement of standing with my body weight on my right leg. Sometimes, I ended up jumping to ensure I landed on my right foot, satisfying the ritual. I had to jump multiple times because I wasn't sure if most of my weight was on my right leg. I did attract ridicule because my praying was more like a lunatic dancing. This ritualistic obsession consumed more and more time. I would then dress and touch a series of deity images and idols before leaving the house. Often, a single touch felt inadequate, and I would swipe my hand firmly over the images instead. My compulsion of making intense and uninterrupted interactions with those of the deities has spilled into life outside my home. I bowed to temples, deities, mosques, and churches, each time taking the name of their respective deity. Once I stopped in front of the temple and had to make long and intense eye contact with the deity. I couldn't make satisfactory eye contact, so I had to stare longer. One of my friends quipped, "Don't stare that long. The goddess will run away from the temple." My behaviors were getting altered drastically, but I wasn't that bothered. I have to do what my mind needs me to do. Before going to bed, I prayed at night, being on my knees and touching my forehead to the floor 3 times. Touching became hitting, and 3 times increased in multiples of 3. If there was an unsatisfactory hit in the series, I had to start all over. Forget sleep. My individual religiosity had peaked and flooded my mind. All the above description is just an abstract of my individual ritualistic religion. I can't think of what else my individual religiosity would have evolved into, and what all it would have made me do. My father's health, my health issues, and the drags of completing the PhD fueled my individual religiosity. My father, who was bedridden for a year with paralysis and cancer, died while I held his hands. Breaths went shallower, and the intervals longer until the life was gone. The moment of life and death. The overseeing figure under whose shadows I reveled are gone. Witnessing my father's death up close, my research on toxin-antitoxin systems, and several debates I watched on YouTube shattered my mental habits, obsessions, and ego and initiated a drastic change in me. Questions arose in abundance, but answers were few, reigniting my interest in philosophy and psychology. However, merely discarding bad ideas was insufficient. It could lead to psychological disturbances. Many who leave one religion often find themselves embracing another, as the mind struggles to tolerate the void and uncertainty. I owe a great deal to Christopher Hitchens, Professor Richard Dawkins, Dr. Sam Harris, Professor Lawrence M. Krauss, and many other rationalists whose debates have emboldened me to stand upright in the mind, even if it accrues loneliness. I have learned a great deal about science and religion, and that was freedom from fear and more of finding the path to truth. Transformation, I realized, involves 2 essential steps. First, one must shed obsolete knowledge, and second, one must replace it with something better. What one chooses to fill this void with determines the outcome of the transformation. Transformation is only fruitful when obsolete knowledge or perceptions are substituted with better ones. Given the diversity of thoughts, beliefs, biases, and objectives, individuals have different ways, durations, and reasons for transformation. Ultimately, transformation is the result of a flexible mind. Questions like, what is the objective of life, why live, and what should be accomplished emerged as I observed life and death up close. Life, I concluded, is simply a series of events, responsibilities, the pursuit of pleasure, and the avoidance of pain until the inevitable death. I delved deeper into philosophy, epistemology, and logic, rendering all supernatural beliefs irrelevant. The first fear I had to overcome was the fear of God. It is simple to test if we fear God or not. Can you entertain the idea that God doesn't exist? If God exists, he must be good and just, so there is no need to fear him. If God does not exist, there is no need to fear what does exist, Epicurus. I eventually could dare entertain such an idea. The reasoning was simple. If God exists, he must be kind. It is a grave sin to think of God as a ferocious, self-centered, and narcissistic entity. God is love, caring, merciful, blissful, and forgiving almighty. That is the only true description. One need not fear God. The more one fears God, the farther one is from God. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same about dogs, as I still fear them, having been bitten a couple of times. In my spiritual journey, the best I liked was Buddhism, but there is no need for a religion, I discovered. I fortified myself with philosophy, rational thinking, logic, and critical reasoning. It is actually building a kind of childlike audacity and innocence to play life. Gradually, I shed my biases in acquiring knowledge. I acknowledged my deficiencies in knowledge, thinking, personality, physical attributes, capabilities, and what is me and mine. This transformation was calm and liberating, marking a significant shift from obsessive ritualism to absolute free thinking. This, perhaps, is personal evolution. My current beliefs broadly align with the ancient Indian philosophy of Charvaka, dating back to around 600 BCE. Of all Indian philosophies, Charvaka stands out for clearly and rigidly untangling mythology and philosophy. Charvaka questions the existence of God, religious authority, the Vedas, karma, ritualism, and tradition, outrightly rejecting concepts like the afterlife, souls, and religion. It leaves little room for metaphysical ideas, describing religion as an invention of the strong to prey on the weak. Materialism is central to Charvaka's philosophy. What cannot be perceived or understood is considered immaterial. The goal of life, according to this philosophy, is to pursue pleasure and lead a life of free will within the boundaries of freedom, constitutional rights, and law. I do not advocate that everyone should abandon God. A godless life is not for everyone. God is essential for those who cannot bear randomness, face uncertainty, withstand failure, endure difficulties, and regulate themselves. I cannot either. God provides solace, hope, motivation, and peace through good and bad times. We are all different in body, mind, nurture, circumstances, experiences, and existence. There is nothing wrong with having a God. As long as religion remains personal, there is peace and love between people. Children can objectively choose their own beliefs, and knowledge remains true. It should be perfectly acceptable to have a religion. If only religion could. If you search sincerely, you will find God. If you wish, you can perceive God. If you believe, God exists. If you don't, God doesn't. God is in the mind. Maybe mind is the God. I am reading the mind. I am looking for truth. If God manifests, not in my deathbed, not in calamity, pain, or suffering, but in my happiness and bliss, that would be good God. Why take anything on faith? Why let someone do your thinking for you? Why not say, no, the one thing that makes me human is that I can do my own? Christopher Hitchens. I was raised as an Orthodox Jew in a major neighborhood specializing in that in Brooklyn. And somewhere when I was about 14, something changed. And that change probably involved updating every molecule in my body, in that I sort of realized this is nonsense. There's no God. There's no free will. There is no purpose. Robert Sapolsky. Human politics, rooted in primate evolution and group living, emerged as a strategy to share resources and maintain peace. Among primates, social hierarchies and regulations evolved to minimize conflict, ensuring collective survival. Leaders distribute resources while enforcing norms that prevent chaos, balancing fairness and dominance. However, this order often restricts free will. Individuals sacrifice some autonomy for security, stability, and mutual benefit. The challenge lies in determining how much free will to surrender to uphold order without excessive control. Optimal social structures impose regulations through consensus and fairness rather than coercion, fostering harmony while respecting individuality, striking a delicate balance between freedom and order. Politics globally reflect a dynamic tension between individualism and collectivism, aligning with the earlier analogy of bees and hives. In Western democracies, left-leaning ideologies often emphasize individual autonomy, civil rights, and rebellion against traditional structures, prioritizing diversity over conformity. Conversely, right-leaning movements stress collective identity, cultural unity, and nationalism, often promoting stability through conservatism and shared values. Western and Eastern behaviors are deeply rooted in the philosophical traditions of Aristotle and Confucius, shaping societal values, individual conduct, and decision-making approaches. Aristotelian thought emphasizes individualism, rational inquiry, and the pursuit of personal excellence. In the West, this translates into a culture that values personal freedom, logical reasoning, and self-determined morality. People are encouraged to challenge authority, question norms, and strive for personal success, reflecting Aristotle's belief in reason and virtue as paths to a fulfilled life. This fosters a society where independence, debate, and innovation are celebrated, but it can also lead to fragmented social cohesion and moral relativism. In contrast, Confucianism instills a collectivist mindset prioritizing harmony, duty, and structured social roles. Eastern societies, influenced by Confucius, emphasize respect for hierarchy, social responsibility, and moral obligations within relationships. Rather than challenging traditions, individuals integrate into a predefined structure, valuing stability over personal ambition. Ethical behavior is cultivated through rituals, respect for elders, and adherence to societal expectations, ensuring continuity and order. While this fosters community strength and discipline, it can also suppress individual expression and critical inquiry. The Aristotelian West thrives on autonomy and logic, while the Confucian East sustains order through hierarchy and duty, shaping contrasting yet enduring civilizations. In emerging economies, collectivist approaches dominate governance, ensuring societal cohesion amidst diversity. Authoritarian regimes exemplify extreme hive models, prioritizing expansion over individual rights. Modern global politics, however, demand balance, aligning individual progress with collective stability to sustain societal harmony and avoid fragmentation. Two broad categories, often overlapping, bee and hive, symbolize individualism versus collectivism. Bee, individualism. Hive, collectivism. Left-leaning ideologies, right-leaning ideologies, rebellion, progressive Democrats, and atheism emphasize questioning norms. Conservative religious doctrines, nationalism, and structured governance prioritize the group over the self. Focus on individual rights and freedoms, often challenging existing power structures. Emphasis on conservation and expansion, stability, cohesion, and collective growth. Isolation and disintegration, a tendency toward fragmentation when individualism is prioritized over collective unity. Prioritizes personal identity and values individual autonomy over collective goals. Encourages unity and shared purpose within a group or system. Emphasis on growing inward, often symbolizing personal fulfillment over societal expansion. Values sacrificing individual desires for the collective good, fostering long-term cohesion. This comparison reflects an inherent tension between individualism, the bees, and collectivism, the hive. While individualism drives creativity and rebellion, collectivism ensures unity, order, and survival. A society's balance between these forces determines its trajectory, whether it expands harmoniously or disintegrates into chaos. Of course, these categories are more of a spectrum rather than discrete. I am an atheist and progressive, bee traits, with tendencies of nationalism, hive traits. What is considered good or bad depends entirely on the state of the state. When the existence of the state is under threat, a hive government becomes necessary as it prioritizes collective action and unity. However, in times of stability, a bee government, which values human free will and expression, proves more beneficial. The challenge, however, lies in the fact that prolonged bee governance can lead to societal disintegration, as humans naturally tend to follow wayward paths. Personally, I appreciate the autonomy offered by a bee government, but in the face of existential threats, I would not hesitate to support a hive government.